What's up, guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Ayomide, and on this channel, I post sewing tutorials. In this tutorial, I will be sharing how I made this dress with pleats at the bust area. It also has a rope that extends from the neckline to the back. If this is something you would like to learn how to make, then you should see this video up until the very end. Now let us jump right into this tutorial. To begin, this is the fabric I'm going to be working with. This fabric is crepe and I had about 2.5 yards. I am also making this for a size 8 client. Next up, I've got my pattern paper right here, and on my pattern paper I have drafted the front on the side and I'll be drafting the back on the side of my pattern paper. Now let us move on to altering the pattern. This line right here is my chest line. This line is my bust line. I have the under bust line, and the end of the pattern paper is my waistline. Moving on, I would be placing my measurements. On the chest line, I will place 1/4 of the bust measurement. On the waistline, I will be placing 1/4 of the waist measurements plus 1 inch dart allowance. I'll be connecting those points together. After that, I would go ahead and draw in my armhole. Once I was through with that, I went ahead to draw in my darts. Remember, I added 1 inch dart allowance on the waistline. In order to create the curve at the under bust line, I will be marking 1 inch above the under bust line. I would use the curvy part of my pattern master to create a curve that will end on one of the dart legs. After that was done, I marked 2 inches above the chest line on the armhole area, and at the center front I came down by 5 inches. I'm going to be connecting both points together in a curve, and this is because the neckline is quite curvy. It has this shape. So guys, this is how the neckline of my dress is gonna be. Next thing I will do is to draft out the yoke. I'll be marking 2.5 inches at the shoulder slant, and I'll be marking 2 inches at the neckline area for the yoke. Because of how curvy my neckline is, I don't want it to gape, so I'm going to be taking out some measurements there. I will be introducing a dart at the neckline. First thing I will do is to draw a straight line in this manner. Next, I went ahead to take out some measurements on either side of that line. I took out 1/2 inch on both sides and I drew in a dart. This would ensure that that part of the neckline does not gape. I am through with the front, and here I am labeling. I have my front yoke, center front, side front, and the under bust area or the waistband. It is now time to work on the back. The first thing I'll do is to mark the length of the yoke, which is 2.5 inches at the shoulder. Next, I'll be placing my bust measurement on the chest line. I would also place my waist measurement plus 1 inch dart allowance, connect the points together. Also, I'll be marking 2.5 inches above the chest line. I'll go ahead and draw in my armhole. After that was done, I went ahead and marked 2 inches above the chest line so that I can have the neckline for the back. I rolled it into a straight line. Then I also marked 2 inches away from my armhole so that I can now connect my yoke. So right there I have the back yoke, and I have my center back right here. So guys, this is the pattern set I'm going to be working with. I'll go ahead and cut out the front, but for the under bust area of the front, I would be joining it together. I will be closing the dart right there so that I can have a single piece of pattern. After that, I'll go ahead and detach my center front area and also take out the yoke. In the process of taking out the center front and the side front, I realized that if I should close my pattern, my neckline is not aligning. So here I'm just going over to realign the neckline before taking out the pattern. I am done cutting out my patterns, and this is what my pattern is looking like. Before going on to cut on my fabric, I want to do a little alteration to the yoke, and this is to further prevent gaping. What I'll do is to take out half an inch away from the yoke. I'll be connecting it to my armhole area. I'll do this for both the front yoke and the back yoke. I'll be taking out that measurement I marked. So guys, this is my yoke now. This is it on the front pattern and this is it on the back pattern. Also, I want to join the both yoke together along the shoulder slants. This is the armhole area, so I'll join it together along the shoulder slants so that I can have a single piece of fabric and there won't be any seam along the shoulder slants. Once I was done, this is what it looks like. So what I'll do is just to asterisk the part that goes into the armhole. This is the part that goes into the armhole. What I'll do next is to go ahead and cut this out on my fabric. I would also be using the fabric to create a lining and a facing for the front and the back. I am done cutting and this is what I've got. I have my back pattern right here. I also cut out a facing which I would be using for the back. I've also got my front. This right here is my center front. I also cut out a lining using the same fabric. I've got my side front right here. Next, I've got the underbust to the waist area. I cut out two pieces also, main fabric and lining. And for the yoke, I've got my yoke right here all cut out. This part would fit into the armhole. This part right here, I notched the part where I joined both the front and the back yoke together. This is where I'll be fixing the apex of my sleeve. I also notched the front armhole area so that I will know that this part of the yoke should sit in the front. To move on with sewing, I will be joining the center front and the side front together. I'll do this for both the lining and the fabric. And as for the back, all I need to do at this point is just to go ahead and sew in my dart allowance. After sewing, this is what they all look like. This is the front, this is the main fabric, and this is the lining for the front. This is what it looks like. I've got my back right here. This is what the back also looks like. At this point, I have ironed just to make it look neat. To move on, I'm going to be creating pleats on the front area, and I've cut out this very long strip of fabric of no particular length. I just cut out as long as I would need, and the width of this fabric is a total of 4 inches wide. So when I fold it into two, I would have 2 inches. What I'll do is to try and pleat this on my fabric, and to do that I'll just place that strip of fabric on this region of my front, mark out about 1.5 inch away from the side seam. I'll place it down and go ahead and sew this down. I'll secure it with a pin. Next, I'll be cutting it out. I'll place it again and make sure that this one I am placing covers the previous one a little bit. I'll go ahead and sew this down, and this is how I'm going to be creating the pleats on the front part of this blouse, this dress I mean. I'm right here on my sewing machine and I'm just stitching this down gently. So you want to make sure that the pleat covers your seam area so that it does not show. I am done sewing and this is what it looks like. What I need to do is just to create a neat finishing, so I'll turn it over to the wrong side and stitch it down following the shape of the bodice. After sewing, I'll go ahead and trim off the excess I have over there. And this is what it looks like after I was done trimming. You can see how neat it is looking. To move on, I would be getting the midpoint of the neckline area. This is to enable me properly place the rope to be tied around the neck. And I've also gone ahead to prep my rope right here, so I'll just pin it down along that midpoint. I'll now go ahead and sew it down. Also, I would be working on my yoke, so I've got the yoke right here. This is the part that will sit into the neckline. So what I will do is just to place right sides against each other. I'll go ahead and sew it down on the other side, right, leaving the part that would sit into the neckline open. And this is what I have. This is my boot yokes. So this is the part that I notch for the front. Remember, I notch the front armhole area so that I can properly place it on the front. Here I'm just placing my yoke appropriately where it should be. I'll go ahead and sew this down. I would also be fixing the yoke to the neckline area of the back. I'll pin it down appropriately and then I'll go ahead and sew it down. I am done sewing and this is what they look like. This is what it looks like. To move on, I'll be turning it with the lining. So what I need to do is to place right sides against each other. I'll now go ahead and sew it down along the neckline. As for the back, I would be turning with the facing, place right sides against each other, and I will sew it down along the neckline. So guys, after sewing, this is what it looks like. This is what my front is looking like, and this right here is what the back is looking like. I will be closing the center back up when I fix my zipper. So now to move on, I would need to work on the other bust area of the front. So what I need to do is to sandwich the bodice in between the waistband, because this is more like a waistband. So just for remembrance, this is the shape of the waistband. This is the shape. So what I would need to do is just to place the bodice in between the part of the fabric that will stay on the outside and the one I will be using for the lining. I'll pin it down and just sew it together as it goes. So sewing guys, this is what I've got. This is what the bodice is looking like. You would also need to trim that seam on the inside so that it is not bulgy and give this a really good press. To move on, I'm going to be fixing an A-line skirt to this bodice to make it into an A-line dress. If you want to see how I cut this A-line skirt, please let me know in the comment section. So I've got the front right here and this is the back. What I need to do at this point is to join the skirt part to the bodice. To do this, I'll be pinning my skirt parts right sides against each other against the bodice. I'll go ahead and sew this down. I'll repeat likewise for the back too. I am done sewing this down and this is what it looks like. I've also left the space for the zipper area. So what I'll go ahead and do next is to fix my zipper so that I can properly finish off the facing along the neckline. After fixing my zipper, I would also be sewing the sides down, and I would also be working on the hem too. I am done sewing guys, and this is what my dress is looking like. It is already taking shape. I've stitched it by the sides. I have fixed my zipper. I've also finished off the facing, and I have worked on the hemline too. It is now time to work on the sleeve, and for this dress I'm going to be fixing a basic sleeve. I just want a simple sleeve for this dress, and I've gone ahead to cut it out. What I'll do is just proceed to my sewing machine and sew this down along the armhole, and I'll be showing us the outcome of this dress. So guys, this is what the dress is looking like after I was done. I love the way the pleated area came out to be, and this is what the back is looking like too. If you found this tutorial helpful, please give it a huge thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, kindly click on the subscribe button, and I would see you guys in my next tutorial. Goodbye.